Welcome back everybody, I'm Nick930, and last week I was given the opportunity to go hands-on with Ubisoft's hotly anticipated latest entry to their long-running action-adventure franchise, Assassin's Creed Shadows. And today, I'm going to share with you my thoughts on how that game is shaping up, including a look at what you can expect with the game's new narrative, changes that were made to the gameplay systems, the visual presentation, and a brief look at their new back-end Animus Hub that they teased a few years ago. Now, before we get started, it's important to note that while the game is getting closer to release, the build I was able to play was a work in progress, and so bugs, glitches, or other anomalies I encountered, or that you may see in my captured gameplay, might be resolved by launch. Additionally, because this was a remote capture session, my footage was captured at only 1080p, so while I'd love to start talking about how the visuals have evolved since Valhalla, I'll be holding off on my final direct comparison until we get closer to the game's launch, currently set for March 20th, 2025. Alright, so let's kick this preview off with a look at the game's new back-end, the Animus. Named after the same memory archiving technology from the series' story, the Animus aims to be a new home for the Assassin's Creed franchise, aiming to seamlessly connect the most recent games together with a straightforward vertical menu design. Currently, there's 4 categories: the Memories page, with links to all your games, a Projects page that shows challenges you can undertake in those games, which are set to be constantly updated, the Exchange, where players can earn rewards like cosmetics and weapons to use in-game, and the Vault, which will gradually unlock new background lore videos to expand on the Assassin's Creed series' often neglected core storyline. So, all in all, while this is an interesting concept, this kind of thing doesn't really appeal to me personally, and it just feels like it's going to add an extra layer to the boot-up sequence, and make things slightly more frustrating just to get into the game that you want to play. But enough about that, let's get on to talking about the actual new game here. Assassin's Creed Shadows takes place in the highly requested setting of feudal Japan, more specifically, the highly turbulent late Sengoku period, in which powerful daimyo, or provincial warlords, clashed in deadly civil war as they attempted to unify Japan following the fall of the Ashikaga shogunate. In balancing out this war-torn era, Shadows also leans into the blossoming Japanese cultural revolution of the time, as Oda Nobunaga's violent deposition of the shogun brought with it contrasting sensibilities like tea culture and the performing art of no. This, coupled with the advent of architectural marvels, along with some heavy European influence that was introduced during this time, provide an interesting backdrop for an Assassin's Creed narrative. What's more, the writers have opted to lean in heavily to the duality of this era in Japanese history further, by featuring 2 lead protagonists again, much like they had with Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and to a lesser extent, Assassin's Creed Origins. In Shadows, players are able to control 2 different characters. The first is the samurai, Yasuke. Initially brought to Japan by a group of Portuguese Jesuits, Yasuke was taken in by Oda Nobunaga, and eventually given the title of samurai throughout the remainder of Nobunaga's life. He's been featured a few times in various film, animes, books, and even video games, often portrayed as a legendary figure. Though Assassin's Creed Shadows aims to portray Yasuke with a slightly more grounded approach, at least as grounded as Assassin's Creed stories go. The demo I played kicked off with a prologue that shows this initial meeting of Yasuke and Nobunaga, before jumping forward to the siege of an Iga fortress, alongside what appears to be Nobunaga's son, Nobukatsu. Though, not much else was revealed, as this section focused primarily on introducing gameplay mechanics, like the game's combat systems. From here, the game jumped to our second protagonist, Naoe Fujibayashi, the daughter of a skilled evil warrior, who, after the invasion of her land by the Oda, is compelled to enter the world of the Assassin's Brotherhood and take revenge on those who wronged her. This makes Naoe a much more traditional Assassin's Creed protagonist, as she's a fictional, original character that feels more like a representation of what the various assassins at the time would be like. The prologue sequences I played did not reveal how Yasuke and Naoe eventually meet, though for the core of the game, these two do inevitably work together to meet their goals, trading places for unique objectives, and using their respective skills to tackle different challenges. This is where Shadows differs greatly from the dual protagonist setup we saw back with Syndicate, While there were some pros and cons to using either Fry to win, Yasuke and Naoe feel generally different from one another in action. Yasuke, being a samurai warrior, handles like a tank in this game, with very slow, deliberate movement, coupled with powerful combat abilities and heavy weapons. Though, while this makes him great for straight-up brawls, Yasuke is basically useless when it comes to parkour, stealth, and general evasion. In fact, he can't even climb on certain surfaces, forcing him to take more direct paths to and from objectives. Naoe, on the other hand, plays like you'd expect. She's extremely nimble and can climb on nearly anything, from walls and buildings to trees and rock faces. Together, these make for a refreshing take on the whole dual protagonist setup, as it really does feel like your choice of character matters this time. And from the 4 hours that I was able to play, it seems like Ubisoft Montreal are giving players plenty of freedom to pick and choose, with only very specific missions forcing the choice outright. This means if you like being a stealthy ninja, you can spend a good majority of the game as Naoe. But if combat is more your thing, Yasuke is an easy choice. And there's plenty of weapons and combat systems to play around with to help keep this interesting. The combat system should feel immediately familiar to anyone who's played pretty much any third-person action game in the past several years. With R3 locking onto targets, a button to block, a well-timed block triggering a parry, and tiered enemies based on a light RPG progression system. Special combat abilities with varying cooldowns return, allowing for customizable attack configurations to go along with your preferred style of combat. Though what really stood out to me was just how much cleaner the actual combat animations felt, with the swordplay feeling more direct and connected than what often felt like just wild flailing around and swinging in the past few games. It feels a lot better, and I especially like the inclusion of more visceral gore effects too, along with some stylish samurai film-style finishers. Though I did find combat to be a little clunky when on angled surfaces like stairs and slopes, and trying to handle multiple enemies at once was often overwhelming, which wasn't helped by the slight input delay attributed to the nature of remote playtests like this. Personally, I found myself playing with Naoe the most, as I felt that she had the most versatility, especially considering she's not necessarily that bad in a fight either. Though you do need to play more defensively with her, as she can't withstand nearly as many direct hits as Yasuke. She also comes equipped with a lot of unique features, even when compared to past assassins. The grappling hook, for example, allows her to easily climb up vertically, which comes in handy often thanks to the very different style of architecture found in the setting. Naoe can also drop into a prone stance for the first time in the series, and can crawl around in the grass, and dip in and out of shadows. Speaking of which, shadows seem to play a role in the stealth this time, almost like the old Splinter Cell games, with guards losing sight of the player at distances that they wouldn't have otherwise in broad daylight. This comes in key with the ability to destroy lights and blow out candles, giving more inventive options to stealthy players than the series has offered in the past. As for the core world exploration of the game, Ubi Montreal has made some interesting changes in order to make Shadows more immersive of an experience. You may recall in past Assassin's Creed games a sort of immersive objective approach, where players are given clues about their objective, but no specific objective marker. This has been incorporated fully into Shadows, and requires players work out the hints and obtain additional info to narrow down the location of their target. Scouts found in the world can also be used to help here, and can be ordered to search zones on the map, narrowing down the search. The player then must search the location themselves to find the precise location of their target, and complete their objective. When not working on missions, the world of Assassin's Creed Shadows seems to offer plenty of optional activities as expected, like sneaking into fortified areas to steal treasure, or climbing towers and activating viewpoints. And then there's some not so familiar objectives like archery challenges or sumi painting opportunities. Another interesting new feature built into AC Shadows is the reworked Wanted system. Like past iterations of the Wanted system, AC Shadows will punish the player slightly if they're caught killing out in the open, making the player known to the guards within the area of the crime, and sending powerful bounty hunters after them. However, as there's now 2 protagonists this time, the Wanted system accounts for this by only applying that Wanted status to the character that committed the crime, So if you're caught killing a bunch of people as Yasuke, you can just swap over to Naoe for a while to avoid the heat. There are ways to remove the wanted status from a character yourself, though it will also automatically reset with the passing of seasons as well. Which leads to the final feature that I want to discuss today, the game's seasons, along with the overall presentation. This is probably the most interesting new feature in Shadows, in that it's never been attempted before in past games. At least, not with a dynamic approach like this. As you play through AC Shadows, the seasons will change automatically, with at least 8 presets: early winter, early spring, late spring, and so on. With each season, the environment will drastically change, with unique vegetation, different colored leaves, lighting, and even unique weather events. Even in the 1080p streamed footage that I was presented with, the weather effects I could make out were impressive, with really nice particle density and realistic vegetation that blew in the wind across a large area of the game world. The vegetation, even without this wind though, is pretty remarkable, with the sort of variety and density that gives wide-shot views like this one a really impressive look and feel. This extends to the quality of the character models as well, with much better lighting and animation quality than what we saw in Valhalla. I don't think it's the best looking game out there necessarily, but as far as the Assassin's Creed series is concerned, it's certainly looking to be one of the best looking entries in the series yet. So where does this game stand so far? Well, after a little under 4 hours of hands-on time with Assassin's Creed Shadows, I can honestly say I walked away from this much more interested in playing the final game than I had been before. The game feels very polished for an Assassin's Creed game. Yes, there was some wonkiness to parkour, AI, and combat now and again, but it just feels like a more polished experience than games like Valhalla or Mirage did. It also feels much more focused this time around, which I greatly appreciate, with a story more centered around investigating and assassinating targets. And visually, the game looks pretty good, and will be very interesting to see how it stacks up to other titles in the series, and even some competitors. But what do you guys think? Are you interested in Assassin's Creed Shadows? Let me know in the comment section, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this posted every week.